The bulk of the hot summer months are over, and it is training time once again in Tucson, Arizona. And now, while I hope you've come to trust my channel to keep you updated on real estate related topics, I thought it was just about time to post a video about something else entirely. So after a few years break from any sort of serious training approach, I have recently found myself increasingly interested and motivated to start training for long course triathlons again. Now, it's been almost 15 years since I was initially trying to compete in those ridiculously long endurance events, and the question that I've always been curious to answer is, how well might I be able to do if I actually did things the correct way? So in today's video, I'm going to delve a little bit into how I'm seeking to answer that question. What does my training look like as the 2024 racing season approaches, and what exactly have I started doing that I've never tried to do before? Let's take a look. So first, I gotta start with a confession. The second half of the nice, cool winter months in early 2023 was pretty much wasted for me with respect to putting together serious training and competing. I lost fitness as well as all of my momentum going into the 2022 holiday season, having been hit with back-to-back stomach bugs that sidelined me for nearly the entire month of December. And as January rolled in, I didn't really have any races or events on the calendar to motivate me to keep up with the long hours in the saddle that I'm often able to do earlier in the year. Now, Arizona is quite unlike most locations in North America, and our climate provides something of an opposite training calendar from the rest of the United States. As the typical racing season elsewhere in the US is wrapping up in September and October, we are just starting to see the early morning hours crest below 80 degrees for the first time since the prior spring. Riding and running outside just after sunrise becomes more and more enjoyable as we get into the fall months, and then our winter provides nearly uninterrupted, perfect training conditions at some point in the day through all winter and spring, making Tucson an ideal location for endurance athletes to build base fitness earlier in the calendar year. And so the local racing calendar unofficially starts with the El Tour de Tucson race ride here locally in mid-November, right around my birthday and the Saturday prior to Thanksgiving. And then our racing calendar for running, cycling, and triathlon generally starts in January and goes until April or so. And then as Memorial Day approaches, we start to lose the cooler weather even for us early risers, and the choice becomes quite clear. It's either it's time to start the off-season or it's time to leave Arizona for the Midwest or the higher altitudes of Colorado. Anywhere with cooler temperatures that allow for longer and harder training and racing conditions. Unless you are specifically training for an event in triple digits with low humidity, it's just far too difficult to maintain fitness throughout the summer months here in the Tucson area. And so that's been the formula for me for the first 10 years that I've called Arizona home. Just making sure that I'm ready to tackle a 100-mile race ride the week prior to Thanksgiving. And that starts with harder indoor cycling workouts starting in June or July. And for this, I've recently become a fan of the Trainer Road software. Powered by artificial intelligence, the system provides structured interval training that automatically progresses you as you complete these hard workouts. Now, in the coaching world, we call this approach reverse periodization. Doing shorter workouts, which are more intense early in the season, and then building into lower intensity, longer rides later in the year. And as the name reverse periodization implies, the more traditional approach involves training low volume in the early part of the year, then moving to harder structured interval sessions in the spring and early summer, before again shifting your approach to get ready for whatever specific event that you were training for. Be it running a really fast 5K, surviving a 12+ hour full Ironman triathlon, or anywhere else in the middle of those two extremes. Now, for us locals, the El Tour event provides an excuse to build solid fitness earlier in our training year. And the trick to doing that is to not being completely out of shape when mid-September comes around and the early morning hours start to allow for longer outdoor rides again. So predictably, my training season started in June and July, banging out Zwift and Trainer Road workouts while watching Tour de France and Professional Triathlon Organization, or simply PTO, races on YouTube. And with October approaching, I'm now starting to spend more time outside on the roads of the old Pueblo. But this season, I am adding on top of all of that 3 other critical pieces to get my body ready for more substantial training to come. So the first thing that I've added to my training protocol this year is the act of running itself. Prior years of El Tour de Tucson training have involved a lot of biking, not surprisingly, as that was the only sport where I really had any ambition. Low-intensity endurance riding, popularly referred to as Zone 2 riding these days, is pretty easy to accomplish on multiple long loops around Tucson's perimeter. And this time last year, I was able to string together a number of 10 to 13 hour a week of mostly low-intensity riding volume. But with the addition of endurance running earlier this year and the associated goal of my first ever Tucson Half Marathon in early December, just 3 weeks after the bike event, my current training these days is a bit more mixed. Now, while the total volume of either discipline is not as high as it would have been if I had a more singular focus, through high-frequency runs totaling 30 to 40 miles per week, as well as 4 to 5 rides per week, including long rides on the weekends, the total amount of endurance volume is still a bit more than what I totaled last year. But it's not just a function of training more. Fitness comes with training and recovering, while also avoiding injuries and illnesses which derail you from being able to train consistently. And so in an effort to address something I've completely ignored for years, for the first time in my adult life, I've also embraced strength training. Now, while it's fair to say that I initially got into the endurance cycling and running as a means of avoiding the weight room, I've since come to learn about the benefits of strength training, not just for endurance performance, but also with respect to longevity and health span. Everything from recruiting more muscle fibers per pedal stroke to a decreased risk of injury due to overuse and muscular imbalances to even increased time to muscular exhaustion, I've decided to commit myself to adding in a gym routine and maintaining it even as I pick up my training hours elsewhere. So via referral from the local running shop, I was able to find a local solution here in Tucson in Smith Performance Center. And so I wanted to give a shout out to the coaches that I've been working with me to get my movement patterns in order. Their dual focus on strength training as well as physical therapy will be a crucial addition to my plan, not only to oversee my weight training to make sure that I don't overdo it in the gym, but also to help me identify and counteract the type of nagging injuries that, if left untreated, might become full-blown overuse injuries that require weeks or months off of the training plan. And now, while I still can't say that lifting comes as naturally to me as hard intervals or easy endurance riding, it's something I plan to keep in there and to make sure my body can handle the long training stress to come. And as a nice side benefit, it's a means of avoiding the cyclist trap of having a body like a T-Rex, if you catch my drift. And so the third category of added focus this year versus what I've tried in the past, I will put into the bucket of nutrition and recovery. Now, diet's always been a struggle for me, not necessarily with knowing what to eat, but in getting enough calories in without resorting to poor quality fast food options. During peak training months, it becomes unreasonable for me to cook all of my own meals, and I rarely eat out at restaurants except for those times when I end up working during the day and simply can't get home to eat anything that I've prepared. It's still an ongoing struggle finding ways to eat clean consistently, but this year I found a few solutions to help bridge the gap. The first change came in outsourcing many of my meals each week to a meal kit delivery service. I tried a few of the bigger companies like HelloFresh and Factor 75 and eventually settled on a somewhat lesser known company out of Southern California called Discount Meal Prep. So depending on the number of meals that you order each week, each meal costs about $9 a piece including shipping and offers between 300 and 650 calories of real food made up of an ingredients list that it rarely exceeds past 10 ingredients a piece. I gotta say I'm a fan of its no-frill style, reasonably low cost, and I found it an easy way to sneak more brown rice and green vegetables into my diet than the foods that I would generally make for myself. And while I've yet to delve too deep into the supplement side of things, I have for the last couple of months been taking a greens powder in the morning as well as an evening supplement blend, which includes things like ashwagandha powder, turmeric, and ginger. When I was taking recovery practices a little less seriously in my past, I would often unwind with a few beers after work several nights a week, but thanks in part to my Oura Ring sleep data, I have come to value better sleep quality more as I am asking more out of my body. And so while I'm not a huge huge fan of either the taste or the texture, I have been using both the Super Greens and the Golden Milk Powder from Enzo Superfoods out of Illinois. Their Golden Milk product has been an addition that seems to help me settle into bedtime and improve the measurable metrics at the Oura Ring tracks. And while it's still to be determined precisely what effect all of this might have in increasing my nighttime recovery, I view my supplement routine as something of an insurance policy to add a diverse micronutrient profile into my system, which I know I'm not reliably meeting through my daily meal. And so with the onset of October and reliably good weather at least through 9 a.m., I'm very much looking forward to this next block and seeing what type of fitness I can put together for El Tour de Tucson. Now, my future racing calendar in 2024 is still somewhat up in the air. If things go well, I could see myself resuming swim training and starting to train for a late spring triathlon race. Perhaps half Ironman St. George in May, or Arizona's own Deuces Wild Triathlon in June. Or maybe this will be the year for me to attempt to run a PR at the marathon distance at the Mesa Marathon in February. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, and if you're curious to know how all that goes for me, feel free to add me on Strava, as that is where all of my training sessions end up. And let me know down in the comments what events that you are excited about for next year, or if you plan to be at any of the races that I've mentioned. We can link up and share training tips. So thanks for indulging me on this one. We'll see you on the next video just as soon as I come up with another idea of something I'd like to record. Keep the rubber side down, and we'll see you soon.